This happened to me about 3 years ago when I was 24. I was working nights at a hospital back then, and I usually got off around 2 in the morning. Public transport didn't run that late, so I relied on Uber to get home. Most rides were quiet and uneventful, just small talk and the hum of the highway. But this one night was different, and I couldn't have been more wrong to think it would be just another ride. It was mid-February, freezing cold, the kind of night where the streets look empty except for the orange glow of a few streetlights. I remember standing outside the hospital entrance, my breath turning white in the air while I waited for my driver. The app said he'd arrive in 3 minutes, dark blue sedan, driver named Caleb. The profile photo showed a friendly-looking guy in his 40s. When the car pulled up, everything looked normal at first. Same color, same plate number, same name flashing on my phone screen. I got in, said hello, and thanked him for showing up so quickly. He just nodded and gave me a half smile before pulling away. The first few minutes were fine. He asked if I worked at the hospital, and I said yes. He told me his sister used to be a nurse, and we chatted about how exhausting night shifts could be. It felt harmless, friendly even. But then his questions started getting strange. "So," he said, glancing at me in the mirror, "do you live alone?" I hesitated. Yeah, it's just me." He smiled wider. "Must get lonely sometimes." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. I tried to steer the conversation back to neutral ground, asked if he'd been driving long that night. He ignored the question and said, "You know, you've got a really nice voice. Bet the patients love you." I didn't answer. I just looked out the window, hoping he'd take the hint. But instead he laughed softly and said, "I like that you're shy. Most people talk too much." A minute later, I noticed he took a wrong turn. I looked down at the app. It clearly showed a different route. I think you missed the turn," I said. He replied without looking at me, "Nah, this way's faster." I knew that wasn't true. My house was east, and we were heading north, toward the edge of town, where industrial buildings replaced houses and the roads got darker. "Could you please follow the GPS?" I asked, my voice tighter now. He didn't respond. He just kept driving, one hand tapping rhythmically on the steering wheel. That's when I heard the click, the sound of the back doors locking. I froze. My heart started pounding so loud it felt like he could hear it. "Why did you lock the doors?" I asked. He chuckled. "Safety feature." "You're fine." The word fine sounded like a threat. I texted my roommate under the seat line of sight. "Call me. Now." A few seconds later, my phone rang and I answered, pretending to sound casual. "Hey babe, yeah, I'm on my way home." "Yeah, you're waiting outside? Great. See you in 5 minutes." I made sure to emphasize that someone was waiting for me. The driver's smile vanished. He looked up at me through the rearview mirror and said quietly, "You shouldn't lie like that. It makes people think you're hiding something." That sentence chilled me more than the cold air outside. I said nothing, just clutched my phone, finger hovering over the emergency call button. Finally, after what felt like forever, he took a sharp turn, back toward the direction of my neighborhood. No words were exchanged for the next few minutes. The silence was suffocating. When we pulled up near my street, he stopped 2 houses short of my actual address. He turned halfway around in his seat and said, "You seem nice. Maybe I'll pick you up again sometime." I didn't answer. I just opened the door and got out, slamming it behind me. He didn't drive off right away. He just sat there, engine running, headlights cutting through the snowflakes. Then, after a few seconds, he slowly pulled away. I ran the rest of the way home. My roommate hadn't actually been waiting. She was asleep. I locked every door and window before I even took my coat off. Later, when I checked the Uber receipt, the route showed that wrong detour. 15 extra minutes unaccounted for. I reported the incident, but support only sent an automated response saying the driver would be reviewed. His profile disappeared from the app a week later. To this day, I don't know what he planned to do during that detour, but sometimes when I'm in a car at night, I still hear that faint click of the lock and that calm voice saying, "You shouldn't go home tonight." This happened to me about 2 years ago when I was driving for Uber in a mid-sized city in Oregon. I usually worked nights, people leaving bars, night shift nurses, the occasional airport run. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and I liked the quiet. Most rides were uneventful, until one night that still lingers in the back of my mind every time I see fog on the road. It was a Thursday around 1:30 a.m. The city felt half asleep, wrapped in a low fog that blurred the streetlights and muffled every sound. I got a ping to pick up someone named Daniel from a grocery store parking lot on the edge of town. That wasn't unusual. The area had a couple of small bars nearby. I figured it was just another late pickup heading home. When I pulled into the lot, the place was mostly empty. Just a few flickering lamps, a shopping cart tipped on its side, and an old sedan parked near the dumpsters. I didn't see anyone waiting, so I texted the usual, "Hey, I'm here." A few seconds later, the rear passenger door opened and someone slid in quietly. He looked to be in his late 40s, no jacket, even though it was cold and wet outside. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, his hands pale and still. He didn't say much at first, just mumbled the address, a neighborhood about 20 minutes away, and settled into the seat behind me. The first few minutes were silent, except for the hum of the tires and the rhythm of the wipers. Then he started making small talk. He asked if I'd been driving all night, and I nodded. He commented that I must meet all kinds of people doing this job. I told him, yeah, I'd seen a little bit of everything. He leaned forward slightly, just enough that I could feel the weight of his stare through the mirror. Then he asked if I ever worried that people might not be who they say they are. I remember giving a small laugh, saying something about how the app tracks everyone and that it's safe enough. He made a quiet sound, not quite a laugh, and leaned back again. The next few miles were quiet, but there was something about his stillness that unsettled me. He didn't scroll his phone, didn't look out the window, just sat there, facing straight ahead, breathing slow and steady. When I glanced at the rear view, his eyes were already on me. Not angry, just focused, like he was studying the back of my head. Then, out of nowhere, he said my name. He said it casually, like it was something I just told him a minute ago. But I hadn't. It took a second to register. He'd said, "I like your car, Ben." My name. He couldn't have known that. Passengers see a driver's name on their app, but drivers never see theirs. And I hadn't introduced myself. My phone screen was dark. My name wasn't displayed anywhere. I asked how he knew it. He didn't answer right away. He just looked out the fogged-up window and said something about having ridden with me before. He said it like a fact, not a guess. But I knew he was wrong. I'd never seen this man before in my life. I drive hundreds of rides a month, sure, but faces stick with you, especially the strange ones. His didn't. Still, there was something in his tone that made me hesitate to argue. A few minutes later, he said that I'd told him the same thing last time, about the app making everything safe. That's when my pulse picked up. It felt like he was replaying a conversation that had never happened. The fog outside was thick now. The GPS said 10 minutes left, but I had no idea where we were. Every road looked the same, empty, wet, lined with old warehouses. He was quiet again, but the kind of quiet that fills the whole car. Then, just as I turned onto a long stretch of empty highway, he leaned forward. I felt his breath on my shoulder when he said, almost in a whisper, that I should be careful about what I say to people. And then, more quietly, "You remember what happened to the last one who said that?" My stomach dropped. I didn't know what he meant, but I didn't want to find out. The next gas station I saw, I pulled in, pretending I needed to refuel. I told him it would only take a second and stepped out of the car. I tried to sound calm, but my voice cracked halfway through. When I walked around to the pump, I took a deep breath and glanced back through the windows. He was staring straight ahead. No movement, no reaction, just sitting there. When I turned back around to grab my phone, I heard nothing. No door, no footsteps, no sound at all. When I looked again, the back seat was empty. The door was still closed. No one had passed me. The lot was completely quiet. I opened the back door just to be sure. Nothing. No trace of anyone ever sitting there. I checked my Uber app. The ride was still active. The destination pin still there, the time still running, but the passenger's name field was blank. No profile photo, no rating, nothing. Just trip in progress. I ended it manually, parked for a few minutes to calm down, and drove straight home. I didn't sleep that night. The whole thing replayed over and over in my head. His voice, the way he said my name like he'd known me forever. I kept driving for Uber for a few more months, but I never took another request from that side of town. And even now, 2 years later, I still check the mirror more often than I need to. Because sometimes, when the fog rolls in just right and the lights flicker on the highway, I swear I can almost see him sitting there again, quietly smiling in the back seat like he never left.